Welcome to another podcast from Cy Green. In this episode, we break down the freshest research, hot off the press. Stay tuned and let's dive in. Oh, and before we start, hit subscribe and drop a comment to keep the green vibes growing.
You know that feeling when you really want to learn something new? Maybe it's a language or an instrument or some new software for work, but then you stop and think, who has the time? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty powerful idea that flips that whole excuse on its head. And it all starts with a feeling I think we can all relate to: sheer panic. So this whole story kicks off with a moment of crisis. The author Josh Kaufman had just welcomed his baby daughter into the world. And you can imagine, right? Between being a new dad and trying to run a business from home, he had this sudden, overwhelming realization. His free time was just gone. Forever. Now, for a guy who loves learning new things, this was a huge problem. He didn't want to give up that part of his life. So it basically kicked off this personal mission. He went to the library, he started digging through research, all to figure out the absolute fastest way to pick up a new skill. He started with one simple but massive question. If you're starting from absolute zero, how long does it actually take to learn something new? What's the real investment? And the answer he found, and I mean he found it everywhere, was this number: 10,000 hours. This is that famous rule that says it takes a massive amount of practice to get good. To put that in perspective for you, that's like having a full-time job for 5 years straight. It's just completely demoralizing, right? But here's the thing, that number just didn't sit right with him. I mean, think about it. You've learned new things in your life. I've learned new things. Did it really take us 5 years of full-time work? No way. So what's the deal here? He decided to trace this 10,000-hour rule all the way back to its source. And this right here is the crucial detail. The whole idea comes from research by Dr. Anders Ericsson, who was studying the absolute tippy top of human performance. He wasn't looking at your average person learning a new hobby. He was studying world-class violinists, chess grandmasters, professional athletes, trying to see what it took to be the literal best in the world in these hyper-competitive fields. So how did we get from that very specific research to what we believe today? Well, it was basically a huge society-wide game of telephone. Malcolm Gladwell made the idea famous in his book Outliers. From there, the message just got distorted. It went from reaching the pinnacle to just becoming an expert. Then that got watered down to just becoming good. And finally, the myth was born. It takes 10,000 hours to learn anything, which is just not true. So, okay, if the 10,000-hour rule is a myth for most of us, what does the science actually tell us about how we learn skills? Well, the research shows that when you're just starting out, when you know absolutely nothing, you actually make huge gains really fast. That first little bit of practice gives you this massive jump in ability. You go from being completely lost to being surprisingly okay much faster than you'd think. And that leads us to a much better, much more practical question. Let's just forget about being a world champion for a second. How long does it really take to go from knowing nothing to just being reasonably good? You know, good enough to have fun and know what you're doing. And after going through all that research, Kaufman found an answer. And honestly, it's so much more hopeful and, well, so much more useful. The answer is 20 hours. That's it. The data shows that with about 20 hours of focused, smart practice, you can get shockingly good at almost anything you can think of. So this is really the core idea. It's a total mindset shift. The 10,000-hour rule is about becoming a world-class, elite expert. The 20-hour rule is just about becoming reasonably good. One is a 5-year, full-time job. The other, it's about 45 minutes a day for a month. That is something anyone can do. Okay, but here's the catch. You can't just stumble around for 20 hours and expect magic to happen. There's a method to it, a way to practice smart so that every minute actually counts. Let's break down the 4 simple steps. So here it is, the 4-step method. First, you deconstruct the skill. Break it down into the smallest possible pieces and figure out what's most important to practice first. Second, learn just enough so you can tell when you're making a mistake and correct yourself. Don't fall into the trap of reading 20 books before you even start. That's just procrastination. Third, get rid of anything that could distract you. Turn off the TV, put your phone in another room, make it as easy as possible to just practice. And finally, number 4, commit to practicing for at least 20 hours. That's the magic number to push you past that initial frustration wall. You know, that point where we all feel stupid and just want to quit? All right, this all sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work in the real world? Well, Kaufman decided to put his money where his mouth was and test it himself. He picked a skill he'd always wanted to have, playing the ukulele. And he gave himself a 20-hour deadline to go from a total beginner to being able to perform on a stage. No pressure. So he started with step 1, deconstruction, and he quickly found something amazing. A ukulele chord book might have hundreds of chords, but it turns out most pop songs just use the same 4 chords over and over again: G, D, E minor, and C. By just focusing on these 4 chords, he could play literally hundreds of songs. And the result? After exactly 20 hours of focused practice, he walked onto a TEDx stage, ukulele in hand, and played a medley of songs from Journey to Lady Gaga. He proved it. The method absolutely worked. And this brings us to the most important point of all. The biggest thing holding most of us back from learning something new isn't that we're not smart enough. It has nothing to do with intellect. It's emotional. It's that fear of feeling stupid at the very beginning. We just hate being bad at things, and that feeling is what makes us give up way too early. But if you can just push through that initial frustration for just 20 hours, you can get over that hump and get to the part where you're actually pretty good and you're having fun. So the only real question left to ask is, what are you going to learn in your first 20 hours?